Hi, I'm Nicholas Seminario, founder of Dark Angel Company. This podcast is to share the untold stories of just a few of the many people battling mental illnesses in this world. If you're in need of a little inspiration to keep fighting or to feel less alone in your battle, keep listening and share to spread awareness. This is the Dark Angel Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dark Angel Podcast. It is Nick, your host. I really appreciate it if you guys give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you more episodes and gives you more great content like this. Today we are brought Talia Lazarus, and I'm really excited for this episode. She is all the way from London, correct?
Correct.
So why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little about yourself, what you do, and then we'll jump into your whole story.
Cool. Yes, please. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. You also a guest on my show, but we'll get to that eventually. So it's an honor to be here talking to you today. So yes, I'm Talia Lazarus, and I am the founder of a company called I Got Back Up. And what I Got Back Up does is it talks to people coming back from life-changing events, traumas, and recoveries. And with all of that in mind, I then launched my own podcast called I Got Back Up. And it basically does exactly the same thing, has somebody very different each, episode on the show to talk through their adversity and, where they are now.
Yeah, and I think it's so cool that you're doing this, and I'm really excited to jump into your story. But before that, it's really admirable what you're doing and how you're touching so many people also. I think it's so cool that we're able to find people in similar spaces, like I said, across the world. We were talking about it a little bit on your podcast, but it's just so weird to really think about, like, 50 years ago, this would have never happened. 30 years ago, this would have never happened. So the ability to be able to connect and reach with people is greater than ever. So with that being said, I really think we all as a community need to really jump on that. We really need to use those resources and use those options to connect with people and, helping this mission and showing that we're not alone in whatever we're doing. So I want you to get into your story. Let's start from the beginning. What happened, how it happened, the whole gist.
Yeah, of course. So in August 2021, I'm pretty sure it was August the 23rd. I should know that, but I feel like it was. On August the 23rd, 2021, I was in a road accident. So I was on an electric scooter and one of the stand-up ones, and I basically lost control and I hit a bus. And what happened was once I hit the bus, I think the mind and the body it doesn't know what to do. I'm in a state of panic once I'm in this space in between the pavement and the bus. And what I did was, it's all quite blurry, which is interesting. But what I did next was I put my left leg down while the scooter was still moving. I, for some reason, couldn't stop it. And I put my left leg down. And I think the impact of putting something down very quickly stationary while still on a moving vehicle just threw me into the air. And I remember landing on my left leg, on my knee in particular, and almost trying to keep my head off the ground. It's interesting, again, I think what your body knows how to kind of keep yourself safe. And I went tumbling through the middle of the road. And all of a sudden, next I remember was kind of tumbling through the road with the scooter as well, all wrapped up together, and then strangers picking me off the side of the road. Just grabbing me off the side of the road. And I remember sitting on the pavement with these two strange men at either arm, and with my leg out in the middle of the road. The bus was still there, just out in the middle of the road. And I think I knew something was terribly wrong. And I was in just a complete state of shock, a complete state of absolute panic. I was hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe properly. I was just in so much shock. And what happened was they pulled me off the side of the road and they put me on a chair. And it's one of those things where, again, I knew what was wrong. I knew it was my leg, which is, again, so interesting. But what is another interesting part in what happened actually was, and we're going to talk about this moving forward, but how you talk to yourself negatively and how how many times you do it. And I had just had the accident. I mean, seconds before I'd had the accident. And I was sitting on this chair on the side of the road. And all I could tell myself was, I am an idiot. I am an idiot. I had everything, per se, everything going for me. I was in a great place. I was happy. I was fit. I was healthy. I had a great job. I was happy. I was really, really happy. And all I could tell myself was I was such an idiot because I knew that this was going to be bad. I could tell just by the pain in my leg that this was going to be bad. And it's so interesting, like I was just saying, how the first thing I'm telling myself is I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot for having this accident. I'm an idiot for falling off the scooter. I can't blame myself. Like, how can you blame yourself? Yes, okay, there were different ways it could have gone where I wouldn't have had the accident. But why am I telling myself I'm an idiot when I've just done this I've just had this
Yeah,
happen?
which obviously you shouldn't have.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. And that's why I think now when I talk about it, I find it so interesting that that's what I was saying to myself. And anyway, so the paramedics came and I just remember being in shock, complete shock. And anyway, so they bent my leg for me and I thought, great, nothing's broken. And this next part isn't for the faint-hearted, and it's amusing when I tell people. I enjoy telling people because I love watching people's reactions. But what happened next was they said, right, we're going to take you to the ambulance. So I put both my arms over the paramedic's shoulders and I took one step on my left leg, one step, and my ankle went one direction, my knee went the other direction, and then my leg came back together. And as that happened, like a piece of spaghetti, as that happened, I looked down and I saw it. And I think watching your own limb do that is one of the scariest things. I mean, I can see by the look on your face. It's one of the scariest things to witness because you have absolutely no idea where this is going. And, your legs that you spend your whole life or, please God, walking on, to watch your own leg do something like that, it's terrifying. And it was a huge
Yeah.
part of my recovery after and a huge mental barrier to get through everything I did afterwards. Anyway, so about a month later, I was rushed in for emergency knee surgery. And then fast forward about 6 months' time, I had double knee surgery. But all in the first 10 weeks of having the accident, I didn't walk. I wasn't allowed to put pressure on my left leg. My left leg became so thin, it just wasted away. And again, you have no idea that your body's going to do that you have no idea that your body can do something like that within a matter of weeks.
Yeah, and how old were you when this happened?
I was 25.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what I think I was saying was, I was 25 years old and life was good.
Yeah.
Life was good. And this happened. So I didn't walk for 10 weeks after the accident. I had to relearn how to walk, which again, relearning how to walk at the age of 25. The last time we all learned how to walk was we were, teeny.
One. Yeah.
We were teeny.
Mhm.
So I had to relearn how to walk. I had surgery a month after the accident. Then I had double knee surgery the following year. And yeah, I just never thought at the age of 25 I would basically break my legs.
Yeah, so I really want to dive into that because that's crazy. I mean, just something as simple as that, right? You're going out one day, you're deciding to go on a ride on your scooter, and your life just completely flips upside down, right? After you got hit, what was going through your mind other than I know you said you were like, what's wrong with me? You were kind of down on yourself, which, like you said, is very interesting. Like, that's your first thought was, what's wrong with me? Instead of being like, I need to get help. I'm not okay right now. What was going through your head? What were you saying? Personally, if that happened to me, I would probably have passed out. I'm not good with, like, I hate needles. And then that would have been in my head. Oh, I have to go to the hospital. I'm probably going to pass out. What was going through your head? I know you were in shock, but kind of take us through this whole thing. Give us these fears, these feelings. Give us everything that you really felt in that moment.
Yeah, no, of course. I think being on the side of the road, I know I've said shock and you just said shock as well. I think that was definitely, I was confused. Like I said at the beginning, it's still kind of a blur. And I don't know if that's my own, mind protecting me just from it, but it's still all a bit of a blur. And I think I was so confused how it happened and how I was able to suddenly be on the side of the road in excruciating amounts of pain. And I remember when I was on the chair, I remember saying, I think someone said, do you want to go to hospital? And I just remember, yes, yes, please. I wanted to go to hospital because I had absolutely no idea. Yes, I knew it was my leg, but I had absolutely no idea what was going on. And I think I was absolutely terrified. I was absolutely terrified because, like you said, I woke up one day and wasn't expecting to, hit a bus. I was absolutely terrified. And even on the way to the hospital, I think it was a state of almost maybe denial for a while. I don't think I really fully processed what was going on. I don't think I let myself. I think I wanted to just know, what I had done to my leg. I wanted to know the injury. And I think, especially in those 24 hours, I almost didn't maybe again let myself fully understand and appreciate just the impact of what had happened. And then fast forward 24 hours, maybe not even that, and this is something that, interestingly enough, I haven't really discussed before, and not because I hadn't wanted to, it just hadn't come up. And what happened was the next day, again, I was in a really good mood. It was weird. I wouldn't say a good mood, but I was in an okay place, seeing as what I had just been through. And actually, interestingly enough, I remember the physical sensation of feeling like my leg wasn't part of my body. When I found out eventually what had happened, I had ruptured so many different things in my knee that feeling of that my leg kind of didn't feel like it was part of my body was almost quite accurate, because it was hanging on by fibers, my knee from below, because of the extent of my injury. But fast forward to the following day, and I was in the car. We were driving. I wasn't driving. And we were in the car and we drove past a bus. And I remember we drove past the bus and I started to get this weird kind of breathing. There's suddenly this darkness filled me. And 10 minutes later, I had to pull over because I thought maybe my blood pressure had dropped. I thought maybe the coffee I'd had the morning with the medication I'd had was affecting. I thought, something was going on inside. And so I think I had 2 ice creams. I had a chocolate bar because I thought it was my blood pressure. I thought, okay, just, and we're still in the car. I'm noticing that my breathing's getting worse. I'm noticing that my arms are starting to feel funny. I'm starting to kind of, I'm losing my breath as well. I'm starting to kind of daze in, daze out, daze in and out, kind of black out. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't blood pressure. This is something worse. Anyway, within the hour, I was having a full-blown panic attack. But I didn't know that this was a panic attack because no one had really told me about a panic attack before. And what had happened was it got to a point where, kind of before it had started to be at this full-blown panic attack, I remember saying to myself, I feel like I'm dying. I was like, I feel like I'm dying. I was like, I feel like I'm dying. And people were reassuring me, but you're not dying. And I was like, you can tell me that, but I have this feeling inside that's it. I'm going. And then, like I said, within the hour, if anyone's had a panic attack before, and they obviously know the symptoms, but I felt like that I was having a stroke. I couldn't feel my hands. My arms went numb. My jaw went numb. I was slurring my speech. My eyes kept blacking in and out. I kind of couldn't stay awake. And all I could say that I could end up saying was the bus. I kept saying the bus, the bus, the bus. But I didn't know this was a panic attack. I thought I was dying. Anyway, someone came over. I was with people and someone came over and they said, do you want to go to hospital? And I remember I turned to them and I went, I'm dying. Yes. I was like, I am dying. Yes. Anyway, back in an ambulance again for the second day in a row, back in, on a stretcher in the back. And what happened was as I was wheeled back into the ambulance the following day, sorry, the day after the accident, but as soon as I was having this panic attack, the same doctor that had treated me the day before was at reception, and he looked at me, and I remember saying to him, the bus, and he looked at me and he said, "You're having a panic attack." And it was almost like as soon as I heard someone tell me I was having a panic attack, I kind of was like, oh, wait a minute. I mean, it wasn't as quick as that. It took me about an hour or so, but it was almost like as soon as I was told what this was, I started to calm down. But what I found out afterwards, obviously, witnessing it myself, is that when you're having a panic attack, you don't necessarily know you're having a panic attack. So all those fears come in and they make every symptom worse, to the point where if you haven't kind of taken control of the panic attack, then it's, you're kind of all, guns blazing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like it's a perfect example of it, right? Where you see this bus and now you're sitting there and subconsciously your mind is going crazy about this accident and you're worried now it's going to happen to you again, right? Which is a legit thought. You're a day after an accident. Of course, you're going to be having these thoughts that aren't irrational, right? That's a legit thought. And even still to this day, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a bus and it kind of triggers some sort of scary emotion in you, which is totally reasonable. And it's so interesting really how the brain works and how it does that, right? It's kind of putting up this barrier where no, I need to be protected. I need to protect myself, which then sometimes it causes panic attacks, which now you're overworking yourself and you're causing all of this stress on you, which is scary. And like you said, you didn't know what it was. So, of course, it's that feeling, like you said, you feel like you're dying. So, when you kind of realized this after, were there any other instances of panic attacks? Was this the only time you've had one?
No, I had one the next day.
Oh, really? Okay.
I had one the next day. But because I knew when it started to come on what it was, I still had a small one, but I'd almost calmed myself down enough before it ended up in a full blown one. But the issue and actually what you were saying was a really interesting point about the mind protecting itself. And I think that's like I said before, for about 24 hours, I was in a decent place after the accident, which was confusing. And then it was almost, I think it was kind of my brain's way of protecting me. And then as soon as I saw the bus again, I think that's when my brain went, uh-oh, what actually happened? And that's when I think it sunk in. And I think that's when this kind of little stage of denial that I was in, I wasn't in anymore. And that's when it all came out in the panic attack. But what happened was I was so scared the next day because I'd had another panic attack. I thought, I cannot live my life like this. London is full of red buses, full of it. And I thought to myself, I cannot step out on the street and have a panic attack every time I see a bus. Bearing in mind the next day, it wasn't even because of a bus. It just came on. And I thought to myself, great, I'm not living a life where they just keep coming on. And I actually spoke to a therapist that week. I thought I have to do this as soon as I possibly can. And I was lucky enough to speak to somebody that week. And she spoke to me all about panic attacks. And one of the most interesting things she ever said to me was the worst thing to do with panic attacks is building a fear of panic attacks. Because if you have a fear of panic attacks, as soon as you start to feel an attack coming on, you're so scared of it that it doesn't actually help you get through it. And it was incredible because I'll be honest with you, I've had a few on-set ones since in the most random and the most peculiar of places for the most, I can't even tell you what reasons. But as soon as I now feel them coming on, I don't know if that's now because I've had, such a big one that maybe it's just something that might occasionally happen in the future. But because I know obviously I can go through them, but the tools that she gave me, as soon as I start to feel one coming on now, wherever I'm at, I will sit down and I will do the tools. And you still have that fear of, one of the symptoms of a panic attack is you feel like you're dying. So I still get that minor feeling for about 30 seconds, but I have to tell myself it's a panic attack and I have to do the steps that she gave me, and slowly, I get through them. I haven't had as bad a one as I have, at the accident, but yeah, I had to speak to somebody that week because, like I said, the worst thing to do about a panic attack is to develop fears of them.
So I also want you to kind of get into that whole therapy session. I don't know, in your past, did you ever struggle with any mental health related issues, or was this kind of the first time you really experienced panic attacks, anxiety, stuff like that?
This was definitely the first time with regards to panic attacks, but I think with anxiety, I had definitely experienced it in the past, yes. And I think, we've been talking before that a lot of people suffer with it. And I think these days a lot more people are suffering with it. And I had definitely suffered with it in the past, but it was interesting because I think my accident and my recovery and everything I went through, because I hit rock bottom. I hit the lowest I've ever been. I remember I'd look down at my own legs, which had scars on them from the surgeries. And I didn't even recognize my own legs because of the scars, to know that the trauma I'd put my legs through. And I'd look in the mirror and not know the girl that was looking back. I was lost in every way possible. But that was interesting because anything with regards to mental health that happened in the past that I'd been kind of dealing with or maybe put sticking plasters on, it was like everything had now come to light, everything. And I thought, right, this is quite literally the lowest I've now ever been. I can now start to really get a hold on everything and I can really start to come to terms and acceptance, self love, however it is that people look at it. I can really start to change everything now because of where I'm at. And that's kind of where I went from that. So yeah.
That's so awesome too. Like being at a point like that, right? Lowest of lows, and kind of coming to terms with it and being like, you know what? I'm not going to let this control me and ruin me. I'm going to kind of take it and make it my fire and fuel me to kind of change who I am, what's going on, and my past. At this time, were you walking or you weren't even able to walk?
I at this point in particular where I decided it was time to change my life was not long after the second surgery. So kind of in between the first surgery to the second surgery, the accident to the second surgery, it was pretty tough. I mean, sorry, not even pretty tough. It was just dark.
Yeah.
It was really bleak. But you know what? It was, like I said, it was after the second surgery, and I just thought to myself, right, I don't want to live in this despair anymore. I don't want to be this upset anymore. I don't want to be in this darkness anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I think throwing myself into my physiotherapy, so the physical side of things, and getting into the gym, I was training. I mean, it was laughable. I was training legs like 4 to 5 times a week.
Wow.
It was like I turned into some kind of machine in a sense that I was just programmed to keep going because I was so determined to physically come back stronger. But I think physically doing that and going in and training and knowing that physically I was improving, I think it just helped again with the whole mental side of things. And I think it really did help with, if I can hit goals physically, I can also do things mentally. So yeah, definitely. It was a case of, but even after the second surgery, I was walking but barely walking, kind of like a penguin walk, I suppose. But to be honest with you, I was just incredibly grateful that I could walk again. I was incredibly grateful to just be alive. And I think that's what's quite interesting from my accident is that, I didn't have a helmet on that day. So, people wear your helmets. But had I have fallen other direction, any other direction, that could have been it that day. And I think that's what's almost was like the life changing moment when I started to realize that, I'm extremely lucky to still be here because, someone else might not have been. And that's kind of what I've taken from this the most is, I'm here. Yes, I've come away with quite literally one of the worst things you can do to your leg. But interestingly, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, and that's so important too. There's so many things. Like you said, you could have fallen the wrong way, which that's also a scary thought you must have had in your past. Like, if I've fallen this way, that really could have been it, right? Like, I could not be here right now. So, I mean, I know personally, I'm someone who kind of, with my anxiety, I'll have these crazy thoughts, and but that's not really a crazy thought, right? Like you said, if you fell a certain way, things could be very, very different. So, even kind of battling with that stuff, how does that make you feel? Do you ever kind of have these existential thoughts within yourself? And, what's that like? That's a whole battle within itself.
Oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, no, I do have them. I do have them, and I think that's kind of it links in with I got back up. Building I got back up, and the reason why I'm doing this because I just think to myself, like we were saying, it could have been my time that day, and I've always wanted to help people for years and years and years and years and years. I wanted to help people, but I couldn't figure it out how. I couldn't figure out when. I couldn't figure out why. I tried so many different things, and I couldn't do it. And I'm a big believer of everything happens for a reason. So I was wheeled into the hospital. I have just had my accident. I have just come out of the ambulance on the stretcher. I am wheeled into the hospital. And I turn to somebody and I say, everything happens for a reason. Right. So, yes, I know I had these negative thoughts of this is all my fault. This is all my fault. I'm such an idiot. But then I'm wheeled into the hospital. And my next, well, not my next thought, but my, not long after my thoughts were everything happens for a reason. And this person turns to me and they go, well, what is this reason? Like, look at you. Tell me
Yeah.
what this reason is. And I responded with, I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. And I think, like you were saying, with the whole existential, moments and things like that, no, it could have been my time that day, 100%. And yet I've wanted to help people for as long as I could remember. And now with I got back up, please God, I am. And it almost puts everything into perspective that, you know, this is almost my purpose. This is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. And, all the reasons in the past why I wanted to help people, they never worked, maybe because I hadn't have had, the accident myself. And then I have this accident myself, and it just puts everything into perspective.
Yeah, totally. And it's really so interesting. Like you said, like you just woke up this one day and now your life is completely different, right? And I think a lot of people definitely would not have taken the approach you took. I think a lot of people kind of let things bury them in a sense, right? Like it's so hard to get back up and push through it, right? Like I don't know if you had a big support system or if this was kind of something you were doing by yourself, but it's so hard to get up when you're knocked down, literally and figuratively, right? But you did both. You got back up literally, right? You had to get back up physically and you got back up figuratively, right? Your mental health was really at a low. You were having the possibility of not being able to walk. Your leg, like you said, you used to be active. Your legs now are not or were not the same at the time. So you had to get back up, right? You had to take matters into your own hands. And I don't think a lot of people would be able to do that. And I give you a lot of credit for that because it's not easy. Whether it's something big or small, it's very hard to kind of get out of these things that we're in, right? Whether it's just a bad day. Sometimes these singular bad days can turn into bad months, bad years, right? Because we have trouble getting out of our own situations sometimes. So for you to be able to be at such a low point, and not that it was your fault, this is kind of something that just happened that caused you to be in a low point, but you were able to get out of it and you were able to kind of say, I'm not going to let this ruin my life. I'm going to make my life different because of it.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I really, really do appreciate that
Of
a
course.
lot. Kind of makes me a little bit emotional when I hear that. But you know what? You're right, and you hit the nail on the head. And it's something I learned, which is when you are at rock bottom, wherever your rock bottom is, for whatever reason it is, I can not almost, sorry, I can emphasize with people and I can understand now why some people stay there. I can
Yeah.
understand completely now why maybe some people turn to certain things, because taking that first step of being like, right, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to see the light, I'm going to make a change. That's the hardest step to take, because when you're at that place of rock bottom, you just don't see any hope, you don't see any light, you don't see any amazing, bright, shiny, sparkly future. You don't, because your reality in that moment is the existence of darkness. But having that tiny glimmer of hope, that tiny moment of belief, is the first step into changing your life. Yes. And I guess I still don't necessarily know where it came from, but I do think that we are all a lot stronger than we ever know we are. And there have been moments in my life where I look back and I still think to myself, wow, how did I do that?
Seriously.
Because we are, yeah, because there we are a lot stronger than every single one of us are, than we know we are. We just need to almost channel and find that strength and just do it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
no, 100%.
So, another thing too, when you were creating I Got Back Up, how did that all kind of happen, right? So, when did you decide I want to do this and this is how it's going to go?
You know what? It all happened around the same time as my first surgery. So I had
Okay.
2 weeks off work after surgery. And what happened was I started writing while I was off, because there were things I couldn't do in my life, which I loved. Traveling, climbing, there was a few different things. And so I started writing about them.
Okay.
And then I realized I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed what I was doing. And then fast forward a couple of months, I then started to talk to a few people that had been through their own journeys, because I wanted to write their stories. And then what happened was while I was writing up their stories, I was sharing their stories with, on my website, which at the beginning was a blog. And I was sharing people's stories on my website, and my friends and family were reading the stories, and they were saying to me things like, wow, if this person can do this, it makes me want to do that.
Mhm.
Again, people that had such different, adversities and different stories. But it wasn't just the people that were reading it, it was actually the people I was speaking to as well.
Okay.
And they were so grateful that I wanted to share their story. They were so grateful that I'd given them a platform to share their voice, to open up about what they'd been through. So I realized that there was a few different things going on here. I realized I wasn't just helping people that, were reading the stories. I was also helping people sharing their stories. And it was a case of, I guess, like when you start anything new, you have no idea where it's going. You have no idea. You have no idea how it's going to develop. You have no idea really where you're going to take it. So that was around the beginning of 2021. And when you fast forward to about 6, 7, 8 months time, the podcast I didn't even come until last summer.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that wasn't even I'm going to do a podcast. That didn't appear
Okay.
for months. Um, and I think what happened was step by step, especially as I got through my recovery, I think that was a huge deal. I think I had to get through a lot of things at the beginning of 2021, because I was in a really bad place for a few months in particular. And I think maybe as I started to get through those, and as I started to get happier, as I started to get healthier, and I guess, more at peace and more freer, was when everything started to really develop. And then last summer I launched I Got Back Up officially, and it's kind of gone from there.
Okay. That's seriously so cool. Like, it's such an amazing journey. What is your favorite part about the entire thing?
You know what? My favorite part about the entire thing are the people. Are the people that I see interacting, whether it's on social media, not even, not necessarily to me, but whether it's a comment I see on one of the posts that someone has related, someone has felt the same, whether it has been a message that I've had directly. I had a message the other day from somebody telling me they were a brand new follower. They listened to one of my episodes on a walk and they loved it. And those messages, I can't explain the feeling. They just mean more to me in the entire world than kind of like, I'd not say anything else, but they're the most fulfilling things. And it just makes me know why I am doing this, if that makes sense. It's not,
Totally.
when like I said, I'm doing it for people, for the people. And it's those kind of messages, even when I see things like, I'm so glad I saw this today. I really needed it. And I think to myself, well, whoever you are, you know, if that's given you hope today to do X, Y, Z, to give you that glimmer of hope, or to to make you step out of your comfort zone that day, then that feels like that's my job done. And
Exactly.
that's what I love the most about what I do when I see these things. So
Yeah, there really is nothing better than that. And like you said, we're doing it for the people, right? We're trying to help people and brighten their day. And those messages, when you guys send them to Talia or you send them to myself, it really does mean a lot, and it's really seriously appreciated. Um, because we want to know that, it is making an impact. We are changing people's lives, and that's really our goal. So while you were doing all of this, was there any times where everything became super overwhelming while you're trying to recover and now you're trying to start a business? I can imagine that's a lot, right? Starting a business by itself is a lot, let alone going through all of this stuff at the same time.
oh yeah, I was overwhelmed in so many different ways at so many different points. I think also, especially, I quit, my full time job to go on this big venture of an idea. It wasn't, I quit actually to become a journalist, and then fast forward a year, that's not even the direction I took. I didn't quit to build I Got Back Up. I quit my job to become a writer. And then fast forward a year, this grew. And I think that's what's really interesting. But yeah, there were plenty of times. And I think it's the thing is you sit, especially at the beginning of anything, you sit there and you doubt yourself. Should I be doing this? Am I really okay to be doing this? Is this the right decision to make? And I think when you're going through, physical problems, mental health, whatever it is that you're going through as well, and then you put everything, like building a business at the same time, it's extremely overwhelming. There was a point where in my recovery, I used to make a joke, and I think I used to, use humor. I think a lot of people do when they go through things. And I used to say I was physically broken, so my legs were broken. Emotionally I was broken. Yeah, mentally I was broken. My heart was broken. And then I'd also decided to quit my job. So I didn't really have a job as well. And I used to sit there and I used to say to myself, I've absolutely nothing right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have the most incredible family. I have the most incredible friends. I have the most incredible support network. Yes. And I think you mentioned that earlier, and they definitely helped me through everything. But when it was just me on my own, I was like, yeah, I've got nothing. I was like, I've literally got nothing. I am the rawest, the darkest, the saddest I've ever been. And I think that was incredibly overwhelming. But that was the moment when I realized, right, I've cleaned every single slate of my life. Now let's restart my life at the age of 25, going on 26. I can now write the life I want to do, and how I want to do it. And there have been plenty of times along the journey where even still, people say, oh, but you shouldn't, or maybe you should, or, they kind of interject in certain ways. And obviously it's all from a place of caring, of course. But I think if you have a dream and you have this vision, it doesn't matter how many people might tell you at the beginning or in the middle or even towards the end, should you really be doing this? Even in your darkest of stages, even in your most overwhelming moments,
Hmm.
because those are the times when you doubt yourself. But if you have that tiny little bit of belief, even through that overwhelming moment, and I still get overwhelmed, occasionally, it's normal. If you have that bit of belief, all that matters is you. And all that matters is if you have a dream and you know you can get this dream, you just keep going no matter what.
Yeah, totally. And that must have been scary for you, right? You're kind of going out on just chance, right? You're taking a chance on yourself. And that's scary for a lot of people, but you did it, right? And that didn't stop you from doing what you want to do. And that's so important, right? Like, you guys have to realize that out there. Everything in your life, if you're trying to make money, whatever it is, the money will come, right? You're doing right now what makes you happy, right? And that's, you took that chance on yourself, and look at you now, right? You're building a great business. You're able to be doing what you love every single day, and that's so important. And all this came from was you getting into an accident and you seeing like life's so important, right? We have to take every chance we can and live it to the fullest. And I think you've done a great job at that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think an interesting point as well is a lot of people, we listen to external people. We listen to the our outside world a lot more than we listen to ourselves. And I think I mentioned it just before, there were people along my journey that were telling me I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't do that or I should maybe not do this certain thing. And that's fine because, that's human nature. But I think what happened was, and in the past, if things like that had happened, I used to be like, yeah, you know what, I probably shouldn't, and I probably would give up. But I think what happened was this time I wanted I wanted to make a change. I wanted things to be different. And obviously, you take all of that into consideration. You listen to people, but if you have, like I said, if you have a dream, you continue on with your dream. And I think it's incredibly important. Yes, external, comments and things like that come all the time, and some are actually probably very useful, and some you probably should take on. Fair enough.
Hmm.
I do respect that. But a lot of the time as well, you have to listen to what you truly want. And so many people can get into your head that you end up not being you, and you end up not being your authentic self in the sense of following the thing you want the most. And I think that's where a lot of people end up in life, is they don't follow the thing they want the most as well. Not just yes, because of fear, yes, because of comfort zone, but also because of everybody else, because they are so worried about what everyone else is saying. They're just not listening to themselves and what they really want.
Totally. Totally. And I think a lot of people are guilty of that, sometimes myself included. And it's something I've been really working on, right? Like, who cares what people think? Like you said, up to an extent. Of course, some people are trying to look out for you and help you. But for the most part, for those people who are going to be, negatively thinking about you, or at least you think they are, who cares? Just kind of let it roll off. Don't worry about it, and think about those positive thoughts that people are giving you. Would you go back and change anything? Would you go back and, hope that accident didn't happen, say, or no?
This is my favorite question, and I'm really glad you asked it to me. I I don't remember when. I think I maybe mentioned it to somebody, but if I could go back and I could tell Talia on the day of her accident, on the morning of her accident, if I could tell her that she was about to have this accident and she has the choice whether to do it or not, I would tell her to absolutely go ahead and do it. I mean, so realistically, I'd probably not tell her, because if you're told, you're going to have an accident, you're not going to do it. But I would tell her to do it, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because my life was going one direction before. And, you know, I was happy, like I said, but my life has just changed in its entirety, and it has gone a completely other direction now. And I'm glad. Like I said, I was happy before. Would have had no complaints before, but I probably would never have really seen the extent to which I can live my life, and to make dreams really possible. And that all kind of really did happen after going through what I went through.
Yeah, and that's so important. Like, I ask a lot of people that question, what would you do in your situation? Would you go back and change this kind of life changing event? I don't know if you've seen, I recently did an episode with somebody named Rebecca Colton. She's a 23-year-old quadriplegic. She got into a skiing accident at 21 years old, paralyzed from the neck down. And, I asked her the same question. I said, would you go back and change anything? And she said, no. She's like, everything happens for a reason. I'm here, and this is who I am, right? I was, like you said before, this was my purpose, right? We come here and we're doing things. Somebody has a plan for us, and this is kind of what's going on. So I think that's very amazing and interesting. You wouldn't change anything. And I think if you did change something, then you wouldn't be where you are today, right? You wouldn't have this story and this company to kind of build behind it, right? It's something you can relate to with other people. And not that there was anything wrong with your life prior, but this kind of added to your amazing life, right? This added to your story and gave you that hope and that fuel to be like, no, I want to change the world. I'm not going to just sit here and let it change me.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I have a question for you then. Would you change
Yeah,
what you've been through?
definitely not. I think what I've been through has made me create what I created, and it's been able to make me voice what I've created and what I've gone through, not just through myself, but through other people, right? Even you, I find every person I interview, I find a little bit of myself, whether it's something so small as it's the same color we like, or something so extreme as going through something almost completely identical, right? But I find all these people are put in my life, to not only help other people, but also help me, right? This is part of my journey. I'm still figuring out my life. Like we all have these things that we're learning and we're forever learning. And this is just something to kind of help that. And we get to share that information with so many other people. I would never change anything. I'm happy with what happened. It made me who I am. And, same with you. I imagine you're probably at some of the best points in your life right now. You're able to seriously do so much and help so many people. It's amazing. It really is.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And one last question. What would you go back and tell yourself? What would you tell younger Talia about this, kind of your entire life?
So, from what age?
I'd like you to do when you were younger, like younger, like maybe 5 to 10, and then, say a year or two prior to the accident.
Yeah, sure. I think what I would tell the very, very young Talia is that life is a roller coaster, because it really is. And there are going to be so many different things along the journey, for whatever reasons, whatever it is, at school, out of school, anything, everywhere. And there are so many things that you're going to face, and there's so many different things that are going to happen. But you are a lot stronger than you think. And each thing you are going through is only going to make you into a better person, or into the girl that you're meant to be. And if you just take everything on, which is okay, but if you take everything on, and it's going to get hard, there's going to be tears, there's going to be a lot of tears, but if you take everything on and you just never give up and you just keep trying and you just keep going every single day, no matter how hard it gets, it does get better. I can't promise you when, I can't promise you how, and I can't promise you, why, but it will, as long as you just keep going and you just believe. I love the word believe, because I think if you have a tiny bit of belief, even through the darkest of times, that little bit of belief gets you through it.
Totally. And what about the Talia, 2 years or a year prior to, your world completely changing?
You know what? I'd probably tell her to embrace the next year. Just enjoy it, because yeah, it's all gonna change. But yeah, to be honest with you, probably I think the Talia before the accident as well was I've always been spontaneous, and I've always liked to say yes to life, and I've always liked to be that person, face my fear, step out my comfort zone. But when I look back, I think I used to take a lot of life a lot more seriously. And I think it's important to take it seriously to an extent. But I would tell her to just almost just embrace the next year, because she's about to go on one hell of a journey. But just enjoy who she is, because I think what's really important as well is the Talia from a year or two before my accident. I don't recognize her anymore, but in a healthy way, in a very, very healthy way. And something I've learned by talking to a lot of people with the show, and also just going through it myself, is that when you've been through something and you look back on the person you used to be, you have to let go of the person you once were. And I'll look back at pictures and I don't know the girl looking back in the pictures anymore, which is sad, which is really, really sad. But it's also kind of warm, and it kind of brings this nice bittersweet glow, because you can see then that you've changed as a person and you've developed as a person, and you're not the person you used to be. And I think we are all learning, we are all growing, we are all changing every single day, even if we don't realize it. Every interaction we make, we change again, even if we don't realize it. And I think just being able to fully accept that you have to let go of the person you once were to move into this next stage or this new stage of life is so important. And I just think I would tell her that it's okay and it's all gonna be okay.
Totally. And I think that's some great words for everyone to kind of take in, right? Everything will be okay. You just have to keep pushing and pushing, because one day or another it's going to break through, and you're going to realize that. Is there anything else you would like to touch on before we close out?
To be honest with you, not really. I just want to say thank you to you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I've loved talking to you, and I think what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
And
You
it's
too.
nice because it's nice to see someone, doing this something very similar to me. And I think what you're doing is amazing. And the people that you're speaking to, the ways that you're doing it, and you're reaching out to different people through your own journey is what's so important. And I loved what you said before about you see a little bit of yourself in everybody, and you learn from everybody, because even though you're helping others, you're actually helping,
Hmm.
you're helping yourself as well. And it's incredible that, you're doing it too.
Thank you so much. And please plug yourself. I want you to, share all your Instas, your Spotify, all that stuff, so everybody can go check out I Got Back Up.
Yeah, I've completely forgot about that part. But yeah, you can find the web. We have a website, so it's called www.igotbackup.net. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, all at I Got Back Up. And you can also reach out to me at Talia Lazarus, just very simply like that. So yes, please do. But you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. There's actually a big list where I didn't realize people listen to, lots of different streaming services. So there's a big list that you can find on the website of all the different places you can listen to it as well. And you can watch it on YouTube.
Perfect. Is there anything else, or you're all good?
No, I'm all
All
good.
right,
Thank you so much
perfect.
for having me
Thank you
today.
so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. It was an amazing episode, and I would love to hopefully do something in the future. Thank you guys so much for listening, and don't forget to check out Dark Angel Company on Instagram at Dark Angel Co. and online at darkangelco.com. If you're interested in supporting and spreading awareness towards bringing light to a dark topic together, then tune in next time.